In fact, Montaigne was not sure of anything. He was a skeptic. This is first to be seen in his attitude toward morality and religion. Far from being willing to die for any dogma or even to be inconvenienced by any scruple, Montaigne advises us in his essay on custom to conform ourselves to our time and society. There are no universal moral principles binding upon all men, and still less can anything be known about God, salvation, and a future life. Wisdom, therefore, consists in having no personal conviction, and in deferring to common opinion so as to avoid trouble. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. The Romans, that is, the Romanists, were at that time busily massacring the Protestants in France. Well, the Calvinists had it coming to them. They were opinionated people who violated accepted customs. Neither they nor the Romanists had any reason to believe as they did, but as Romanism was on the ground first, the Reformed people were clearly wrong in creating a disturbance. Of course, the Romanists were wrong, too, in murdering the Protestants, for no belief is worth killing or being killed for. Montaigne's skepticism, however, goes deeper than these moral and religious matters. Although the Renaissance was optimistic, although the 17th century in France was to exalt reason, and although Montaigne himself exercised some influence over the 17th century writers, still he expresses grave doubts as to the powers of reason, and I quote, "If you say the weather is fine, and you are speaking the truth, then the weather is fine. Is that not a way of expressing a certainty? And yet it will deceive us. To see that this is so, follow up the example. If you say, I lie, and you are speaking the truth, then you are still lying. The art, the reason, the force of the conclusion in this case are the same as in the other. Nevertheless, you find yourself bemired. I observe the Pyrrhonian philosophers who cannot express their general motion by any manner of speech, for they would have to have a new language. Our language is entirely made up of affirmative propositions, which are wholly hostile to them, so that when they say, I doubt, we have them immediately at our mercy. If we force them to admit that, at least they assert and know this, that they doubt." Unquote. Although the last lines of this paragraph point the way to a dogmatism immediately utilized by René Descartes, the main thrust is skeptical and as such contrasts sharply with the views of the following 3 centuries. With the sole exception of David Hume, the philosophic and scientific development that formed modern European culture showed no anxiety relative to the competency of the human mind. It is the thought of these major philosophers to which most attention must be given. But first, one later continuation of the Renaissance, a continuation on the level of the popular viewpoint, should receive brief mention. This is the so-called Age of Reason, including both the French Enlightenment and English deism. The French Enlightenment will be condensed into a reference to Voltaire and the encyclopedists. It was not any great philosophical movement, but thoroughly popular. Voltaire was as shallow as he was prolific. Anyone who spent his time writing so many volumes and pamphlets cannot have spent much time thinking, though anyone with more than average wit who has been in and out of prison, honored, exiled, insulted, and flattered, could no doubt write a great deal. Yet Voltaire presents no consistent system of thought. At one time he favors free will, at another determinism. There are and there are not innate ideas. The world had a beginning and the world is eternal. Or, again, the teleological argument for God's existence is valid, but noses were made for spectacles, and so we have spectacles. However, consistency and profundity are not the prerequisites of popularity. That's Clark 33, pages 45 and 46 and some of 47.